Today we're going to be talking about China. China is doing wonders in the video gaming industry. It is dominating. It's coming with a new culture. And a lot of people like Razorfist are saying like, oh, China is the problem, V. China has destroyed the West. You don't understand, V. The West was weak and powerless, and China brought wokeness. They purchased stocks, V. They purchased stocks, and then they forced companies into the bankruptcy. And there's nothing that the West could have done to prevent this. It was unstoppable. They're like a paramount force, a force of domination, a force of merchants unlike the world has ever seen. It's China, V. China. Like what could the weak America do? What could the weak France do against the powerful Chinese businessmen? Like the Chinese businessmen came and did business and said, make your video game shit. And everyone at the company went like, yes, Chinese people, we're going to make our video game shit. And we're going to insult our customers, and we're going to hire HR ladies to spit on our customers, and we're going to destroy our brands so that then you can come in and buy us off. And China was, yes, white man, because it is unavoidable. There is nothing you can do. Your fate was sealed. Even when you sat down at the table to play chess with us, you already lost. Because you are losers. You're incompetent. We are gods of merchandise when it comes to business. We from China dominate you. We dominate you, and you can't do anything. And now we're going to push beautiful women into your video game. We're going to corrupt your youth. You thought that your youth are going to grow with representation, with pronouns and with men that have wigs that look like women. But no, we from China, we come and we will dominate your Melody Mac. We will subjugate your Melody Mac, and we will push her aside her morality, and instead your young people will breed on Chinese supremacy like the Communist Party. The Xing Shoye, Mao Zedong. That's what you'll get. You'll get the Mao Zedong because you are powerless. You can't do shit. I really hate this narrative, by the way, which is something that I see pushed with a lot of content creators, and even on Twitter. I think it's coming from Razorfist, right? The idea that the Western world is like an innocent baby with absolutely no will of its own, no power, like completely dominated by the Chinese, right? Which just bought 20. That's all they had to do. They had to buy 25% stocks from Ubisoft and tell Ubisoft, I want you to go woke. I want you to insult your customers. I want you to insult your fans. I want you to create the worst stories imaginable. I want you to push leftist ideology. And Ubisoft, were like, oh, well, I guess we got that. There's nothing we can do. There's no way to defend ourselves against this. And then China went like, okay, now that your company is in ruin, we will buy everything. And Ubisoft was like, God damn it, China, man, how did you manage to pull this on us? How was it possible? It kind of removes the accountability, don't you think? In my opinion, it's kind of like the same feminist rhetoric where you would have like a woman complaining about Angry Joe. And it's like, I met Angry Joe, and all of a sudden I woke up in his bedroom. It's like, how did that happen? You know? Like, there were a lot of women during the Me Too movement, and it would start, it's like, so I was in the room of this guy. And it's like, well, how the fuck did you get there? How did you get there, you know? Like, you have accountability. You can make decisions. You're not a leaf in the wind. Like, you don't just do bad business practices because you're told. And even, you know, like this other thing, which really annoys the living shit out of me. The concept of China forced the West to go woke. And this is why, like, video games were bad. It's like, I'm sorry, but you can be woke and still make good products. I know this is a little bit dumb from me to say, but if I was to make a video game and I was told to, okay, you need to have diversity, you need to have representation, you need to have blah, 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 how much do you want to bet that I can still sell the game? Like, first and foremost, don't hire community managers that spite your customers. Like, that should be number one. You know, you can be a woke company and you can make a woke product, but you don't have to insult the customer. Like, that should be like the golden rule. You know, I'm not saying that the customer is always right, but like at the very minimum, the very basic, don't insult the customer. Don't tell the customer if you don't like it, don't buy it. Don't do any of that shit. Don't come up and say, oh, this developers of ours is being harassed on social media. Look how bad gamers are. Look how evil our customers are. Don't do that shit, right? Like, that should be the minimum. Don't call the cops on gamers. Like, China didn't force Ubisoft to work with the cops. And it's like, oh yeah, if you play our game, we're going to listen in on you. We're going to wiretap your communications. And if you find out that you did the speech of hatred, then we're going to call the cops on you. And then they're proud of it, and they publish that in the papers, right? China didn't force them to do that. China didn't make them do a game called Prince of Persia, where you don't play as the prince, and the action doesn't take place in Persia, and you have hip-hop music, and the male character has, like, the mental illness haircut. Like, if you make a game called Prince of Persia, you make it based on the 1001 Nights Tale, and by the very fact that the prince is fucking Persian, you have your diversity. You have your diversity, you make the vizier fat, you have your representation there as well. I mean, the princess mother can also be fat and in a wheelchair, right? Like you have your checklist, right? Like, what do I need to do in my game? I need a person that's a minority. Okay, I got the prince. You need a person that's in a wheelchair. Okay, the princess's mother happens to be in a fucking wheelchair and she's obese. And then you have, like, the princess itself, and she's gorgeous. She's fucking stunning looking. And then you fucking go, right? You have an ESG game. You satisfy the investors. And I guarantee to you, it's still fucking playable. The changes that are added, like the mother that's in a wheelchair, it's not something that I would have done. But, like, it needs to be done, right? Because, like, you're listening to the investors that told you to do it. So I literally hate this mental illness. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's because of the Chinese, right? Like the poor people at Ubisoft, the poor people at Montreal, they were so powerless to stop any of this. Like, before they even sat at the table, they were already dominated. They already lost the battle. And where was the government in all of this? Like, France actually considers video games to be soft power. They actually are interested in promoting French culture. Like, they're happy to talk about banning TikTok and fighting against disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. But, like, when it's about, like, Chinese people taking away their businesses, where are they? Right. Interesting. And the thing that really pisses me off is that the West doesn't need China to be woke. I mean, look at the French Olympics. Just look at the fucking French Olympics. The Chinese bought 25% shares in the French Olympics as well. None of this shit would have happened in the 90s. None of this shit would have happened in the early 2000s. None of this shit would have happened in 2010 because people weren't mentally retarded. I hate the cope. It's like, oh, goodness gracious, the West couldn't have done anything. Like, they're not guilty of anything. They just got outplayed. No, that's not what happened. The way that I view it is that, yeah, like, China is playing chess with the West, and if the West decides to sabotage itself and to make moves that are hurting itself, like, why wouldn't China encourage that? Because we would do the fucking same. Don't tell me we wouldn't do the same. If China were to have an ideology that's hurting their own nation and their own people and their own businesses, don't fucking tell me that we wouldn't do it. In fact, I would get upset if we don't do it. I would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Now's the time. Look at the opportunity. Fucking do it. And again, it's not the first aspect of it. Like, why isn't our companies doing the same to them? Oh, because their government protects them. Okay. Well, why isn't our government protecting our company? Oh, alright. I see. And like, it's also the thing that while it was happening, it's not that customers were in outrage, right? Because I would understand, like, look at Hungary. A lot of people don't know this, but wokeness was tried in Hungary. And their TV stations were starting with representation, and they were pushing, like, pro-migrants values and all of that. And the Hungarian people, in unison, told them to get fucked. Like, they literally told them to fuck off. Their ratings actually plummeted. There was no conversation in society or on this, on that. Like, it was overwhelmingly against wokeness. And you know what? Like, the Chinese do the same with Western games. Like, Chinese people don't want to play Western games. Because it's like, I don't want to play a game with a man that looks like a woman. Why would I do that? Meanwhile, in the West, it's like, oh, you don't want to play with a transgender character? Oh, are you a gooner? Oh, you're a pervert. You're a gooner. Oh, you got... Let me bring Melanie Mac to lecture just how bad of a person you are because you don't play the correct video games. You need to start supporting you need to start supporting the right games, But with this mentality, do I have any love or affection for the West now? If this is the community, if I have to choose between, you know, having pronouns in my game or oh, you can't play this game because it's got a beautiful woman in it and Jesus doesn't like it, or you need to play this and need to play that, then shut the fuck up. The Chinese don't tell me what to play. Anyway, Jacob Andrew, thank you for the donation. Razor heard that the Trump administration wants to focus on China, so he is falling in line. I don't fucking know what's his take on it or why he does it, but like I grew up with Chinese movies. I don't see like look, I'm a Romanian. My government hasn't declared war on China. When my government declares war on China, then we talk. Oh, but China oppresses its people. Okay, so does Saudi Arabia, but I still get oil from them, right? Like I haven't heard anyone say, where is your oil coming from, sir? Like you're putting oil in your car. Where did it come from? Did it come from Russia or Saudi Arabia? Don't you know that nation? Like, no one talks like that, right? And I keep saying this. I live in the European Union. Like, if I go at the mall, almost everything is made from China. Like, if I want to buy stuff that's not made from China, for me as a European, it's incredibly difficult. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you want to buy furniture, most of it is made in China, right? So, like, my desk is made in China. The parts in my phone are made in China. Parts in my computer are made in China. My fucking shirt is made in China. I don't have any options. Like, literally, you go out to buy, and you can't find most options. But like, for some reason, no, we need to draw the line at video games. Like, oh, V, don't you fucking dare. Don't you fucking dare play Marvel Heroes. Don't you fucking dare play Path of Exile, because they're from China. So fucking what? So fucking what? Like, what? Okay, so if I watched Chinese movies when I was a kid, was that also bad because it's from China? Where does it say that I only need to buy stuff from the West? I watched The Platform recently. That's from Spain. Am I allowed? Is it okay? In the future, can I watch movies from Denmark if America invades Iceland? Like, would that be okay to watch movies from Denmark? You know, it's... It reminds me of the excuses of criminals are because of low-income areas. Hy-Vee, hope all is good. Allergies are no joke. Do you have an allergy? That's sad to hear. No, do call the cops on the people paying your bills, says SRC Baker. You are the prince, and it's happening in Persia. No, it's fucking not. No, you're not the prince. No, it's not fucking in Persia. Look, I'll show you. The fact that I'm getting contradicted on this, like, unless they did some major rewriting until I actually seen it. But this is like the new Prince of Persia game. And the thing that really pisses me off is that it could have been a good game if it was called literally anything besides Prince of Persia. I would have bought it.
Our kingdom is cursed. The prince has been kidnapped.
Right? The prince has been fucking kidnapped. You don't play as the prince. Is fucking kidnapped. There's no prince. So who do you play as?
And taken to a forbidden land.
Right? It's not in Persia. It's in a forbidden land. Why are you lying? Why are you gaslighting to me? Like, you're making me feel insecure. You're making me feel like I'm out of touch. But I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Look at this shit. Look at this shit.
Hope rests with us.
Right? You get to play not as the prince, you get to play as the fucking immortals, right? Like this lady that's a strong bossy chica with broad shoulders, strong jawline, no breasts, and you get to play with the guy that has a mental illness haircut.
Us, the immortals, to rescue him and save the empire.
And then you have the hip-hop music.
We weren't prepared for what was coming next.
Break it down. Yeah, California, represent. From the hoods of California comes an epic adventure. Where you play with the Crips. Everything has to be Americanized. Because otherwise it's, what do they call it? They have a word for it, Orientalism. Right? So don't tell me shit. It's like, oh, it does take place in Persia and you play as the prince. No, you fucking don't. Where the fuck did you get that from? You get to play as the immortal. Now, again, you know, the game isn't bad, like from what I've seen in the trailer. But it's not Prince of Persia. Like, Prince of Persia is a slow, methodical game where you play as the prince, takes place in Persia, and more than that, it doesn't have hip-hop music. It's inspired by Orientalism. If I don't see that, if I don't see the 1001 Nights and I don't see the fucking flying carpet, I'm not playing your fucking game. If it's called Prince of Persia, rename the game, and then maybe I'll play it. Make a new IP. I discovered how to predict what they will do. Look at what they complain about. Remember how they complain about cultural appropriation. Yeah. Like, literally, everything that they accuse others is something that they end up doing it. I want you to see how Prince of Persia 2 looked like, right? Prince of Persia 2 trailer. Let's see if I can find it. Do we actually have a trailer? Because it's a fucking old game. I don't think they used to make trailers. Yeah, I don't think I can find trailers from like games that are so old. But maybe I can find some gameplay to share with you guys. It used to be called The Shadow and the Flame. And I want you to notice how there's like no hip-hop music. A lot of people are complaining like that the prince is white. And I'm like, well, it's Persia, right? Well, like, it's Iran. Like, people from that geographical area, they kind of look white. Like the president of Iran. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Anyway, this is how Prince of Persia 2 look like. Right? No hip-hop music. This is pretty much how it's in, right? It's slow, methodical. And it also has like a lot of traps. And it makes you feel like you're in a fantasy, Middle Eastern type of adventure. Like a djinn is about to pop up. Up. I missed something. Right, look at this shit. Look at this shit. Right? Is there any hip-hop in this? Do we get to see any immortals, though? Then why is Ubisoft forcing the cancer on me? Why is Ubisoft making me witness Le Cringe? Westerners don't understand that a lot of people from the Middle East and Persia actually have a fair complexion. I mean, look at Benjamin Netanyahu, right? Like, he's from that geographical area. If Benjamin Netanyahu steals a pack of gum and the police puts an APB on him, I guarantee to you it's going to be like, Caucasian male, you know? Like, that's what they're going to say. Needs more punk hairstyles with big hair. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so all in all, I don't care that China has allegedly sabotaged Ubisoft. I don't even view it as sabotage, though. Because, like, the thing is, like, I'm willing to bet China has its own diversity initiatives as well. It's just, like, they're not pissing off the customer by doing them. Like, you can have a diverse cast without needing to have, like, women that look like men with wigs, without needing to insult your customers, without needing to hire an HR lady that create a toxic work environment. Like, you can just have your ESG metrics without any of that shit. And to be fair, like, now, I understand that the United States is even banning them, which is something that they should have done a long time ago. So, like, if you want to work with the US government, you want to work with the feds, you need to make sure that you don't have, like, your diversity shit. Which is kind of funny because, the European Union is crying right now, and I'm probably going to make a video about it tomorrow. But look at this one, right? The United States tell European companies to comply with Donald Trump's anti-diversity order. Right? So the European Union is like, oh my god, look at fascism. Oh, this is fascismus. Look at this shit, right? Like this is fascismus, and I want to show you something else. Well, that's also happening at the same time, right? So like while this is happening, we're going to see something else. But here you have it, right? So the United States tells European companies to comply with Donald Trump's anti-diversity order, and everyone is like, well, how dare he? How fucking dare he? Who the fuck does he think he is? How is he doing this? Like, is it allowed? Are we allowed to do this? Why is it being done? So I noticed a trend, right? You have like Canada that's putting tariffs on the United States. And the United States does it in a way that's not very diplomatic, but still, like, I get the principle. It's like, well, if you tariff us, we're tariffing you. Well, how dare you? Like, how is it possible? How can you be allowed to do that? That's fascism. Like, literally, Benito Mussolini took part of your country now. What is with your, like, dumbass American ideology where you think that you can just run your country like a corporation? Fuck is wrong with you, right? The European Union does this all the fucking time. You want access to the European market, you have to comply. Right? Like every single time. And it's the same in the US now. They're doing exactly what the European Union has been doing for the last decade. It's like, you want to work with us, with the Americans, you got to comply to our standards. And the European Union is freaking out like, how is this allowed? Who the fuck do you think you are? Do you think you're part of our club or something, you know? So while this is happening, I want you to see this other news that popped up. The United Kingdom tries to wield censorship laws globally. They did this with Apple. Like, if you missed the news, Apple has encryption software, right? Well, the United Kingdom cannot allow its citizens to have privacy. The fuck do you think you are, in a democracy or something? Like, no, like, the United Kingdom has an army of very wise, experienced, kind-hearted, compassionate people that run the government, and they need to see everything that you're doing, absolutely everything. Like, you got nothing to hide, right? So, like, why shouldn't they look into your stuff? And so they demanded a backdoor for Apple. So, like, everything that's on your phone, if the government wants to see, they should be able to see it. Pictures of your baby, pictures of your ID if you saved them, like, literally everything that's on your phone, everything, the government from Britain wants to see it without a court order. So it's not like you need to be up to something, or that, you know, like you're suspected of a crime and they get a judge to pass a word. No. No, like they want to see everything that's happening at all time, every time. And this was done not just for like the people in UK. No. Every person that uses an Apple around the world should have had its door open to the British government. And apparently the way they did it was to, like they have a way where they can request this to be done in secret, and you're not allowed to publicize the request. So Apple actually violated that ruling and made it public, and they said like, no, fuck it, we're not doing this. Like, we can allow you guys to spy on your citizens, but you can't spy on the French, you can't spy on... Because, like, if that's the case, like, think about other governments, right? Like, if you're in the US government and you're working on something of national security, well, if you have an Apple phone, like, that would be a liability now, right? So, like, Apple doesn't want to be placed in that position where it loses sales because the British government is having a hissy fit. And that's not enough. Now, apparently, it tries to wield censorship laws globally. So the British government has begun aggressively extending censorship beyond its borders, invoking the sweeping powers granted by the Online Safety Act. Now, I want to point out, I know that this is not the EU, but the EU has very similar legislation. Like, the EU all the fucking time does this shit. And so, at this point, I'm less worried about China, and I'm more worried about the West. China has censorship, but it doesn't fucking affect me because I don't live in China. And China doesn't try to force its censorship down my throat. Meanwhile, the European Union and the United Kingdom seems to have like a different way of doing things. They're like, no, you want to deal with us, you gotta censor it. And not just with us, you gotta censor it with everything. Take, for instance, GDPR compliance in the European Union. Like, GDPR compliance applies to non-EU companies that have Europeans on their platform. So, like, if you're, let's say, I don't fucking know, Gab, right? You're Gab, and you're stated in the US, if you have Europeans on your platform, you gotta be GDPR compliant. So they've been doing this for fucking decades, but now we need to act shocked that the United States is reciprocating. And it's basically saying, okay, if that's the way you want it, like if you want us to force every single company that works with us to be compliant with your rules, then you got to be compliant with ours. And I want to tell you something else that the EU does, right? Like, because of GDPR and other rules like this, other bureaucratical nonsense, we don't really have our own social media. Like, for instance, Brazil has its own version of Twitter. Japan has its own version of YouTube. I think it calls Nepo or some shit. But, like, you know, other nations have their own social medias that are usually used internally. The European Union doesn't. Because it can't, like, it's really expensive to keep up with all the regulations. So we're using the American social media. And we're using the Chinese social media with TikTok. And so what does the EU does? Well, it legislates so much bureaucracy that it's almost impossible for these companies not to end up paying fines after fines after fines. And that's pretty much like the way we're taxing them. So, like, I'm pretty sure that these companies, like Facebook, Google, like all of that, they're actually already expected to pay fines in the EU. Like probably like a percentage of their income is considered to be fines in the EU. And they're paying taxes to Uncle Sam, and they're also paying fines to the EU, because, again, the EU is so greedy. Like, they're using the system in order to pretty much, like, tax American companies. And so, like, why shouldn't America do the same to them? Why shouldn't America say, yeah, you want to do business with us? Okay. Now, I hope that what will happen is that they will suddenly just stop with the bureaucracy. And just be like, fuck it, you know, like, let's go back to the way things were. We want neoliberalism. Okay. We're not going to force you to accommodate to our desires, and in exchange, you stop forcing us. I don't think that will happen, though, but, you know, one can only dream. So Gab, a US platform, known for its staunch defense of the First Amendment protection, has refused to capitulate. The UK's Office of Communication is threatening the company with crushing penalties, up until 10% of global revenue, for failing to submit to British censorship demands. Gab, in turn, is reporting the UK government to the United States Trade Representative and the Department of Justice, calling for the retaliation and the imposition of trade tariffs. Gab CEO Andrew Torba and his team did not mince words in their response. We will not pay 1 cent, they said. The platform asserts that the UK's attempt to dictate speech policies an American company constitutes a dangerous precedent, one where governments believe they can impose their domestic laws globally, chilling free speech in the process. Like, again, imagine if China would try to impose its censorship globally. Like, China does have censorship, and it does try to employ it to some way or another, but, like, it doesn't have the same power and the same reach that the United Kingdom has in the West. Maybe later. The notice Gab received from Ofcom demanded the response by March 16, a nonsensical timeline and blunder used to highlight what it sees as the reckless bureaucratic overreach. Meanwhile, another forum often targeted by legacy media for its unfiltered content, Kiwi Farms, has reported it in its own way. Visitors from the UK are met with the blunt message, you are accessing this website from the United Kingdom, this is not a good idea. The page links directly to the Ofcom letter sent on the site, which claims that jurisdiction over any platform with a significant number of UK users, a nebulous standard that could apply to any global website. Kiwi Farms warns UK users that their online activity is no longer private, noting that without Cloudflare IPs masking, which they no longer use, British authorities can directly monitor where citizens connect. And the site advises UK users to employ VPNs. Dude, this is fucking insane, man. Like this is like some Soviet shit. It's like they're listening to Radio Free Europe, and so like they need to mask the frequency. It's like make sure that you put egg cardboards on your wall so that the neighbors don't hear what you're talking about. They don't hear that you're listening to Radio Free Europe. Free speech supporters see the online... And by the way, like the rules from Britain is not illegal speech. It's like legal speech that's harmful. So like completely ambiguous. It's just like the most subjective definition possible in order for the government to pick and choose who they want to fuck with. And so, yeah, like, I don't disapprove of what America is doing because it's literally the same. Like, they're hitting them back with the same shit. It's like you're regulating our companies, you're telling us how to do business, and so it's only fair that we tell you how to do business when you work with us. The UK has become one of the 4 countries I'll never visit in my life, along with China, North Korea, and Venezuela. Oh my goodness! Like, there's a big list of countries that you should never visit. Like if you're just like, there's countries that have civil war. There's countries where there's rebel uprisings. There is this thing called terrorist tourism, right? There's a lot of shit. And so, like, if you're thinking that these are like the only worst countries, nah. Like, the worst that can happen to you in Britain, I guess, I mean, besides violence, right? Like, you happen to witness something that's part and parcel of a big city, like the mayor of London used to say. They can, like, if they really want to fuck with you, they did this to, what was it, Stephen Molyneux and another guy. I think it was Lawrence Southern, right? And what they did is, like, when you reach the border, they can hit you, that they have like a terrorist act or some shit like that. I don't know exactly what it's called. Maybe someone from Britain knows. But they can hit you with that. And so, if they flag you, like, let's say you're an online influencer that's like right wing, you know, you like borders, you don't like unrestrained immigration, you're whatever, right? But you have like policies that go against the British government. What they can do is they flag you, and then they take you into a room, and apparently, like, this is what shocked me. You're not allowed to have a lawyer. Like, you can have a lawyer, and you can talk with him before entering the room, but like after you enter the room, you can't have your lawyer with you. They did this to that guy, I think his name is, not Connor. Fuck, I forgot his name. The one that works for Lotus Eaters, right? Like, he likes to travel around the world. And he traveled to Kabul, and streamed himself traveling to Kabul. And then he also traveled to Russia. And so, because he went to Afghanistan, Callum, yeah. Because he went to Afghanistan and Russia, like, they hit him with this. So when he got back into the country, into his own country, his ID got flagged. And so he's at the airport, and all of a sudden, he's picked up, and he's taken into a room, and he can't have a lawyer, he can't have anything, and he has to give his passwords to his phone. Like, even in the United States, you don't have to do this, right? Like, they need a court order for that, but, like, apparently they don't here, right? So, they're forcing him to give them the passwords. If you don't give them the passwords, that's a crime. You go to prison. Just so you understand, like, refusal to give them the passwords, they can charge you with a crime, and then they send you to prison, and they can look at your phone anyway. So they're looking through his phone, they're trying to see, like, if he posted anything illegal, any problem. And after he's done, they confiscate his phone. So, like, now he has to go back, but apparently, in order to travel, like, he had his credit card on his phone, and London is pretty much trying to become a cashless city. So, like, you can't call anyone, you don't have access to your credit card, you're fucked, right? And then, like, obviously, like, he was innocent, didn't do anything, but, like, he was subjugated to this, like, abuse. Which, you know, like, it's terrorizing for most people. Like, think about it. You know, like, you don't have any problems with the law. But you're a journalist, right? I mean, you work for a publication, and you travel around the world. You go to Kabul, you go to Russia, and when you're coming back to England, you're being persecuted like this. And it's like, the process is the punishment, you know? Even if you're found not guilty, they still take away your phone. They inconvenience you. Like, you can't call anyone, because, like, back in the day, you had payphones, right? So, like, if something like this happened, you probably knew a couple of phone numbers out of the top of your head. Like, you knew the phone number of your mom. You knew the phone number of your close friends, right? So you could call someone to pick you up. But, like, if you have, like, a smartphone, just one, and you have, like, all of your phone numbers there and then all of your connections there, and they take that away from you and your credit cards was on your phone, fuck you do then? Huh? You get fucked. That's what you do. Unironically, he could travel freer under the Taliban. Unironically, like, he actually said this on his video, that he was treated with more respect in Afghanistan than he was treated in his own country. Yeah, Europe doesn't have a Fourth Amendment. Europe doesn't have a First Amendment. Europe doesn't have a Second Amendment. That would be cool if we had them, but we don't. And to be fair, like, before now, despite the fact that we didn't have these amendments, the governments weren't really that crazy. Like they wouldn't just outright start fucking with people in the open, especially like not with journalists that have a platform and then they can spread the news of what happened to them. I told you, I'm going to tell my company I won't go back on business to the UK. I don't think they will let me in anymore. I didn't get the ban for 6 months because I was traveling back and forth too much. Wait, is that fake? Like, I don't think you told me about the ban. What happened? Why'd you get banned? That's so fucking weird. Give me 1 second. Hey, sorry about that. The thing is, like, the difference with Callum is that he was a British citizen, right? Now, if you're a foreigner, they can ban you for whatever reason. You know, they don't like your face, they don't like the way you smell, like, whatever, I don't care. If you're a foreigner to a country and you get banned, I generally don't care because it's a privilege to visit, not a right. But it's a completely different story when you're a citizen of that country. Romania should read its own constitution. Mine has in constitution that censorship is not allowed. We got that in the constitution as well, but we also got in the constitution that we're part of the European Union. And if the European Union wants to censor and the Romanian constitution says we don't, well, guess what happens? What would you call a government of Karens? Karentrocracy? Oh my goodness. I find Connor slightly annoying, but all the best for his future nonetheless. Is Connor the one that decided to wage a jihad against anime? Is he the one that did it? Because like a lot of people hate it, but I don't know why. So I'm thinking it's like the one that started the anime jihad. No, I don't have a custom animation for my troll sneezing. I'm sorry. Apparently, what's his name? Lord Miles is leaving the United Kingdom. And he's basically doing exactly what I've said. It's like, look, a lot of people on the right, they love to talk about loyalty and patriotism, and I generally like understand that to a point, right? Because I think loyalty should go both ways. I don't believe like being loyal to a cause that is actively harmful to you. And so if you believe, which a lot of right-wingers do, right? And I'm only talking about the people that believe this. If you believe that the government of your nation is now working against your interest, that it's wasting your cash, that it's not providing the services that you pay for, that you're being disrespected, then I don't see the problem with leaving, right? Like you still have there is a thing called death and taxes, right? Because like no one can avoid death, no one can avoid taxes unless you're Meghan Markle. Like if you're Meghan Markle and then you can fuck the prince, you avoid taxes. But you still need to like keep a positive relationship with the royal family. But unless you're Meghan Markle, like for the rest of us, death and taxes are something that will happen, right? But you can choose who you pay taxes to, though. You don't have to pay taxes to the same government that you were born under. Like, you can emigrate. You can go somewhere else and you can pay taxes to a government that you feel represents you better. And I guarantee to you, like, if people would do this constantly, at least the people that can afford it, then governments would be a little bit more careful. Why do you think, like, the Soviet Union decided to raise a wall between Eastern and Western Berlin? It's because they realized a lot of people are leaving them and they're not paying taxes to the Soviets. That's why. Like, governments freak out when you do this shit. It really hurts them. Right? So, like, this is why, and I said in another stream, I really disagree with what Sargon is doing, and I told him this as well. It's like, dude, you started a business in the United Kingdom, and you're giving taxes to the government you hate. Now, if you like the government, that would have been a different conversation, right? There are people who like the government. That's fine. Like, I understand those. I don't understand the people that don't like the government and start a business to pay taxes to that government. It's like you can do the same thing in Poland. You can travel in Poland, you can start a business there, you can emigrate, right? Start a business under the Polish government, and you pay taxes to the Poles. And you stop paying to Britain. And every time you have elections, every time, you know, like new elections come up, you go back to Britain, you vote. Because you still have the right to vote. You can have dual citizenship. Like, the whole idea that you need to constantly stay where you're born, regardless if you if the government mistreats you, is something that I don't appreciate. Like, no, this is not something that I will ever believe in. I think that a man's duty, first and foremost, is to himself and to his family, right? Like, a man should sacrifice himself for his family, and then he should look out for what's in his best interest. And then you have, like, a small circle of friends, and then you have, like, the acquaintances, so on and so forth. And so there's no justification in sacrificing yourself for the cause of others that hate you. How about double taxation? I don't think he gets double taxation. Like, if you travel to Poland and you start a business in Poland and you live in Poland, I don't think you pay taxes to the British government. Yeah, he can go to Texas, right? Like, there are other places that you can go and you can still do the exactly same job. Because, like, the thing that pisses me off, it's like, well, Sargon, we don't live in the age of the printing press anymore. Like, you don't sell physical publications. You can do literally everything you do from another country. You can go to the United States and do exactly what you're doing. The content would be identical. And for some reason you refuse to do it. Well, whose fault is it? It is being called a patriot, stupid or not. Well, I agree if, like, the country does things for you, right? Because loyalty is a two-way street. I don't see, like, why you should pledge loyalty to anything that's not loyal to you in return. Like, even in the mafia, the Don still has to be loyal to his Don members. Right? Like, imagine the movie Don Corleone, where Don Corleone has more loyalty for, like, a different mafia organization than his own people. Who else was in Don Corleone? Huh? Like who else was like, what other mob families were in Don Corleone? Let me see what mob families in The Godfather. All right, so you got Barzini, right? Imagine if Don Corleone showed more loyalty to Barzini and his men than he would show to his own family, right? Like, at that moment, would you consider that it is unfair for the members of Don Corleone family to leave the Don Corleone family? Like, if you see that Don Corleone is working with the Barzinis in the detriment of the interests of his own family, and he's constantly swindling his own people, he's constantly lying, misleading them, is always putting the Barzini people on top of his, at that point, wouldn't it be justified that the Corleones would be like, you know what? We're going someplace else. We're going with the Strachis, or with the Cuneos, or the Tataglia, right? Like, we're joining the Tataglias now. Because, like, maybe the Tataglias will look after us more than Don Corleone does. He seems to be with the Barzinis now. He seems to absolutely love and adore the Barzinis. Now, I know the argument is like, well, you can't run forever. Well, start running a little bit. I'm not saying forever, but, like, have you tried a little bit? Like this whole thing, don't run, would have prevented the United States from being formed. Like, the United States is literally made with people that were disenfranchised by the old continent, by Europe, and decided to find a better life elsewhere. Right? Like, and even within the United States, like, you had certain people that arrived, let's say in the South or in another place, and then they have the gold rush, and they're all traveling across the continent to California now. Now, they wouldn't make rich, but, like, the mindset was there, like, if it's a better life over there, let's go over there, because at the end of the day, my family is more fucking important than this plot of land. Like, you even have people from California now going to Texas, right? Like, should they have loyalty to California? Because, like, that's the flag, and they were born in California, so, like, they should show loyalty only to California and not travel to another state, even though it would offer them a better life? The family wouldn't leave. Instead, the Don would be leaving permanently. Well, it depends, right? Like, it depends if the Don would have strong security around him. Like, maybe the Barzinis would provide security for the Don, and there would be some of the Don's men that would be with him. So it really depends. But, like, the idea is there, right? Like, loyalty is a two-way street. Like, you gotta be loyal in order to receive loyalty. It's kind of like respect, right? The macaroni family? Moving from California to Texas to make the place worse. I did hear that Texas is actually becoming worse. Like, I heard that Texas is now, like, not what it used to be, that it's like 3 different places. Like, you have the classic Texas, you know, the one with the small towns and the cowboys and shit. And then you have, like, the corporate Texas that's woke as fuck. And then you have, like, the immigrant Texas, which has its own enclave and its own cultures and norms. Is this true? Is what I heard correct? Because this is what I've been told. The people make the quality change. Carl loves the United Kingdom too and wants to be a part of the change. You can still be a part of the change. Like, you're still making your podcast, right? You're still talking and you still can go to vote. But unless you can convince me that either Don Sargon is like working behind the scenes with various British politicians and starting a political movement and a political party, and he's doing agitation and propaganda where he is required to be in the UK, or he's on the streets doing various nefarious deeds, which he's not, that I genuinely don't see the point in remaining. Like you're doing more harm to your cause if you keep paying taxes to the government that you dislike than if you just go to the United States and pay taxes there. Like, there is no rational argument for this. Like, I'm sorry, I looked at this when I was on the toilet. Like, when I'm on the toilet, I have my best and brightest ideas. Like, that's when I meditate and I figure out the mysteries of the universe. And if while I'm on the toilet, I couldn't find a single positive aspect of a person remaining in the UK when they don't like the government, then there isn't one. Like, I'm sorry, I'm like Doctor Strange that saw all the alternative timelines and all the different futures, right? It's like there is no single positive aspect of starting a business with a government that you dislike and paying taxes to that government when you have the opportunity of leaving, right? Now, if you're poor and you can't afford to go to Texas, that's different, right? But if you can't go to Texas and you still decide to stay, I'm sorry, there's no rationale behind it. Actually, we had 2 gold rushes. The first in 1799 in North Carolina, and the California was in 1848 officially. And in 49 was the upsurge. That's why there is an American football team named the 49ers. Jesus fucking Christ, why do you know all this fucking trivia? See, like, European history is not that... I mean, I don't even know. Like, I'm looking at this part of American history, and it's such a fucking trivia, right? European history is like, and then the Goths came and they brought down the war and the massacre and they killed entire fucking cities, and you know what the Mongols did? Like, the Mongols would come in and they would kill every man, woman, and child. And then they would leave so that the survivors can return. And then they would come back so that they can be very fucking thorough. And then they would leave again. And then they would come back for a third time to make a genocide of such systematic proportion that no one could fucking survive. And they built a pyramid of heads so fucking tall that the man on horseback couldn't see past it. Like, that's European history, right? That's like, so, and then you talk about the Americas, and yeah, so like there was the gold rush, and they bought the shovels, and you know, like the people with the shovels got rich, but like the people that, and meanwhile in Europe, and then the Black Death came, and it created like such a huge toll on the public psyche that you can see it in their songs, you can see it in the art, like people dancing with skeletons, and it was really nasty. And once the Black Death left, then the fires of London started burning. Like an inferno of epic proportions surrounding the entire city. Tens of thousands of lives being burned to ash. And from the ashes, another Black Death came. There are 2 fucking Black Deaths and a fire that people thought that it's punishment from the fucking divine because we tolerated those Karens. Like, those fucking Karens, we tolerated them, and now God is punishing us. Because, like, the Karens brought the war on Christmas. Like, you don't know. But back in the day, Britain became puritanical. Like, we allowed religious fucknuggets to dominate over us. You know, the Protestants. And the Protestants, they didn't believe in tradition. They didn't believe in ritual. They believed in the sola scriptura. Their fucking interpretation of the Bible was supreme. And they believed that in times of Christmas, there will be no joy, no celebration, because that's degenerate. You just stay in your fucking house and you pray while the winter is cold outside. Just the fucking silent prayer the entire Christmas. And that's when God punished punished us with 2 Black Deaths and a raging fucking inferno. Like, that's European history, right? Look how fucking awesome it is. Look how fucking awesome. And then in America, it's like, all right, we had a little boat and it sunk, and we decided to join World War One. American Outlier forgot about the Alaska Gold Rush. Klondike Gold Rush of the late 1890s. The first Trump in America started the family business using these gold rushes to open hotels for the miners. And then the British Empire started the forge of the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution hungered for children. They took the children from the parents and made them clean the machinery while the machinery was running. And the machinery would often crush the children's arms, and that didn't fucking matter because the money had to flow. The revolution needed the blood of the young in order to feed itself. So they took children from the orphanages and they brought them in there so that Ubisoft can make a video game about Assassin's Creed and focus on those historical events through their brain-rotten social justice lens that had nothing to do with what actually happened. Right? Now, see? There's no comparison. Like, I'm sorry. European history is fucking epic. Yeah, no, like, they actually used kids to go under the industrial machines. They wouldn't shut them down because it would affect profits. And the reason they use kids is because kids were small enough in order to go under the machines and clean them, right? You couldn't send an adult to do that. This is like another reason that they use kids in the mines. It's because like kids could go into certain places that were so small that an adult wouldn't be able to crawl under. And then in the 60s, people smoked pot, and MLK gave a speech. Unironically, I'm actually trying to find something epic in American history. Like, there must be something. Oh yeah, the nuking of Japan. I mean, okay, right, you guys split the atom and fuck some people 2 times over with a monumental proportion that only the history books can accurately describe. And so I'll give you that. Okay, like splitting of the atom, like, okay, that was an American thing, right? But other than that, man, even the Indians had like cooler stories, like, and then the conquerors came and we fucking scalped them, and like that's, but like, the Aztecs, right? Like we took the beating human heart out of the human sacrifice, like that. They're also writing interesting stuff. I mean, you guys had the Salem witch trials. Like, that could be made epic. That could be really bloodthirsty, but, like, even that is something you're toning it down for the history books. The revolutionaries defeating the most powerful military. That doesn't fucking count when there's an ocean behind you. I mean, the logistical nightmare of that most powerful military after fighting another war with France, and you guys had help from France. Nah. No. That's not really that impressive. I mean, it's impressive, but it's not that impressive, okay? Not that fucking impressive. Salem was dealing with the Karen problem. An estimated of 50,000 people died in the U.S. Revolutionary War. European historians, I'm sorry we don't register such minor events. To be fair, 50,000 people for that time was actually impressive. But, like, before that time in medieval Europe, the Sultan would mobilize around 25,000 yearly chairs into Romania. So, yeah, I mean, given the scale, it wasn't that interesting. I think V just wants apocalyptic events in the US. Well, yeah, because we had apocalyptic events in in Europe, right? So, like, if we're comparing that... And by the way, Europe pales in comparison with the Chinese shit. Because, like, we're talking about China, right? Like, China had some of the most bloody civil wars in human history. If you remove World War I and World War II from history, like, the ones that would be, like, the most horrific would be the Chinese stuff, right? So you have the famines that they self-inflicted and the civil wars and all of that shit. It's like, every 100 years or so, like, a human tragedy happens in China. The clock is close to midnight, by the way, because I think, like, Mao, like how long was it since Mao took power? probably getting close to 100 years. How about when the United States went and traumatized the Japanese with the black ships? They became an empire of fear, and stated as such as when asked, no, like that's not really important. Like, dude, you're traumatizing people that have like technology weaker than yours. It's kind of like going into Iraq. It's not an achievement. I did give you the nuclear option, right? So like I did say that the 2 nukes, yeah, like those were impressive. I gotta say, you know, when you guys did that, it was done. Hey, that's fucking impressive. Mao won in 1948. Okay, so we're not there yet. Like we still have a couple more decades, but it's getting close, right? Getting close. No, the black ships are actually... Hold on, I'll show you the black ships. Yeah, like Japan used to be an isolationist nation, and they refused to trade with anyone besides the Portugals. And the Americans didn't really like that. So, you had steamboats with technology, they didn't. You bombarded a port, and you scarred the fucking nation. They never seen such destruction in their entire life. So if you go into Japan's history books, this is the black ships. Like, this is how they describe them. Right? Great instruments of death and sorrow. Is this when you guys have created the concept of steamboat diplomacy? Right? Like, you force them to open up to trade with you. And so, yeah, it's interesting. And they actually use this as an excuse with... why they joined the Nazis in World War II. Because they would say, well, we used to be an isolationist nation, but you guys forced us to open up. And in order for us to stay competitive, we have the need for oil and resources, and we could only take it from China. Like, you guys didn't want to trade with us, so, like, where were we supposed to get it from? And so they actually used that excuse in their version of the Nuremberg trials. The black ships led to the nukes? Yeah, well, it's true, Zerev. We just discussed it. You give us a few more centuries, we've only been around 250 years. Plus, like me, I'm just one generation of Italia, so I still got my European roots. It would actually be interesting if we knew the history of the Indian tribes, right? Because, like, a lot of them didn't have the ability to write, so, like, we don't know that much about the Aztecs or who came before them. Like, what was their version of a medieval time period? The only thing that we know is that I think like the Swedish, right, the Vikings, they managed to travel to America, and they found a people that were warlike to the extreme, so they fucked off back home. But to be fair, like back then it was difficult to keep up with the logistics, right? So it was very difficult to keep the supply lines going, and their technology was similar, right? So like the Vikings had bows and arrows, they had bows and arrows, so it was like insanely difficult to maintain a campaign like that. Indians didn't have wheels or horses. Yeah, that's like the problem, right? Why Indian people were not as advanced as the Europeans. There were no horses or beasts of burdens that could be used in America. And so traveling becomes difficult, setting up an empire becomes difficult. There's no point to have wheels, right? Because you don't have horses, so like... and so, one of the reasons that Europeans were successful at colonizing America is because Europeans were actually resistant to a lot of diseases. Since, like, when you live in a European city and you're, you know, surrounded by animals and pests and other things, like, you get immunity to a lot of shit. While people from America didn't have that. So just by contact with Europeans, they would get sick. They did have, like, some version of medieval. I mean, dude, the Aztecs had pyramids and they had various cities. I mean, they had a golden city and shit. Like, the Spanish were impressed, right? So, like, the Spanish from that time were impressed. Now some tribes weren't as advanced, but, like, no, they did have certain things. Yeah, it's bad RNG, basically. Like, they got shafted on a continent with no horses. The Golden City is a cartoon myth. I heard people say that, but like there are historical depictions of what the Spanish were saying that actually did see the Golden City, and so I wouldn't say that it's a myth. I don't fucking know what they seen there, and you need to take into account that Spain at the time looked differently than Spain today, right? And if they were impressed, then it probably looked pretty interesting. But it's called the Golden City because it had gold. It's not like it was a city made of gold, right? But it was like a big city in America, part of the empire. So, anyway, right. I wasn't talking about El Dorado. I was talking about the capital of the Aztec Empire. When the Spanish arrived, the Aztecs thought that they're messengers of God because they're white, right? So, like in their religion, like the messengers of God would appear like white people. And they were taken to the capital of the Aztec Empire. And the Spanish were impressed by the luxuries and all the gold that they saw there. But they also realized they can't take the Aztecs because there are too many. And so in order to take them, they had to form various alliances with other tribes. I think like they even married into the Aztec royal bloodline at some point. I don't really have my American history brushed up. But I think like there are certain Spanish families that still have like names from Aztec families because of the marriages. Anyway, right. I need to go and upload another video on the main channel. And also I promised my wife that I wouldn't make noise after 11 p.m. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chats. And I'll see you guys later. Take care.